Welcome to Going Deeper into Dev Marketing by Developer Market Pair, a show where we go beyond surface level, advise, and focus on actionable insights that dev tool founders and marketers can use to grow today. We'll do long interviews with top dev tool marketers, solo deep dives with yours truly, sprinkled with real life examples and teardowns. This will be fun. Oh, and yes, this was AI generated, but the rest of the show is very personal. Now, on to the show.
Hi, everyone. So today we'll be talking with Matt Nguyen about Google search ads. Great episode. We covered a lot of ground, from the principles behind it to examples. We actually tore down some of the campaigns that Matt ran. A lot of great insights. So I love the episode. Now, there is a slight problem. So it seems, I don't know what happened exactly, but my side is lagging, right? In the episode, the video is lagging a little bit behind the audio. Didn't know how to fix it, and I didn't want to not release the episode for any more longer than I have. So I've decided to record this a little preface explanation of what is happening there. Briefly thought about releasing it with no video, but then you wouldn't have the examples. You wouldn't see the examples, teardowns, and also Matt's side is recorded, just fine. So anyhow, decided to just add this here and say I'm sorry. So I'm sorry. Don't know, I just gotta get better at this, podcasting and things like that. But yeah, but hopefully you like the content and you don't hate the lag too much. If you do, then just turn off the video and maybe turn it on towards the later parts of the episode where we do the examples, where you don't actually see my video at all. It's just going to be a teardown and mostly not speaking. I mean, we're discussing, but still you see the ads there. And not our faces, so that shouldn't be too annoying. Okay, without keeping you here any longer, let's get to the episode. Cool. So I think maybe if we could start with a tiny bit of introduction, because as I mentioned, I do see you a ton in the community, and I think folks in the community know you, but to listeners who don't, would you mind sharing a few words? Setting the context.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Matt Nguyen. I run my own consultancy called Demand Hive. Website is demandhive.io. And so I primarily work with B2B SaaS companies as far as like demand generation. A lot of my services are around paid acquisition. And so that's kind of a lot of the areas in which I help clients with. I come from a developer tools background. As far as like marketing side, I'm not a developer myself. I actually have a marketing background. My claim to fame is I worked at GitLab in a W-2 role, starting there at Series C and saw them through IPO. And so I was in charge of the paid acquisitions program there. Went on to another series of startups and then said, you know what, I'm going to do my own thing, just because I saw this gap a little bit, like especially when you're working with developer tool companies. Those companies are developer led and founded, and there's this gap of going to market and doing marketing, right? And just this understanding of like, what do you need to have in place in order to do so? And a lot of times what I see is, hey, let's just throw dollars at something and see if something sticks. And like foundationally, there's something there. So I wanted to really come alongside like earlier stage startups and help them out in that realm.
Awesome. Yeah. I think it's like finding that spot where, people don't know how to do it and don't necessarily want to do it is a good, good thing to do. Helpful for everyone, and I think, like in this, especially in DevTools and especially ads in DevTools, I think they get such a bad rep, and I think, if you ask someone on Hacker News, like it would seem that nobody and their dog, nobody would ever click any ad or like see any ad for that matter. And then, but that's obviously what people claim. And then when you look at the data, it's actually not true. And more importantly, ads can be very helpful, and it could just be, really good distribution of something that is helpful, as, it should be. but yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good spot.
100%. Especially when, exactly what you're saying is marketing to developers is just a little bit different. And what I found is I come from an agency background when I started my career running a lot of ads for a number of like e-commerce companies. And a lot of those companies, the best practices around ads and marketing is have a CTA, have this like hook, right? But those are the things that don't work with developer marketing. Like if you say like this is the best tool ever or like buy now, like that is the stuff developers like just absolutely hate. I think a lot of people just don't like in general, but kind of in the
Yeah.
sense of like when I think about developer marketing, taking the lens from of ads out, you just think in the sense of like how do I help developers do their job better, solve their problems? How do I make them smarter? And then how do I inspire them based off of like the products that we have? You use that kind of like pillar, like those three pillars in not just your advertising, but your marketing. It goes such a long way because that's what developers want. They're going through their day-to-day job and they're just trying to figure out how do I solve this problem, right? If you can just speak to that, it's not rocket science. It's
Yeah.
just like, okay, cool. Let me give you the answer to the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, and that's exactly where Google ads and any sort of demand capture ads, because there's also YouTube ads that would fall into this, and there are other channels which I haven't really played with too much, like TikTok, search
Uh-huh.
things like that. But definitely Google ads, Google search ads. I mean, and YouTube ads are of course also Google ads. It's just a different thing,
Mhm.
but I think like that part of Google search ads and just devs searching for answers is one of the key parts to talk about today. And
Totally.
you already touched on this, and we're gonna get to this, like the differences between the dev sort of dev tools ads, and then the classic sort of B2B approaches to things and the differences there. But maybe just taking a step back, right? Like before we even decide to run ads, right, or
Hmm.
run Google ads, or any other ads. How do you like to think about it? What's your sort of process to figure out whether it is even a good match for you to work with someone on Google Ads or other ads programs? How do you think about that kind of thing?
Yeah, I like to think of it in the sense of just business foundations, right? Are you set up to essentially run Google Ads? So I mean by that, especially on earlier stage startups, is do you have some type of brand recognition? And do you have product market fit, right? Like, does your product actually start solving problems? Because when you build your campaigns, you want to structure it around like, hey, this is the problem I'm trying to solve, regardless if you're a dev tool company or not. A lot of times, early stage startups don't have those components ready to go, and so, but they just want to throw ads, money at ads, just because like, hey, we need to generate revenue, and ads is an easy way to go. And oftentimes those programs fail because there's no campaign structure. There's no positioning on like this is the problem we're trying to solve. And also when you think about if you're getting into solving a problem, if you see two ads with a brand that is very recognizable and one that nobody knows like has a clue about, which ad are you going to click? You're going to click on the
Yeah.
one that you know, like the company, right? And so there's a piece of having some type of brand recognition and awareness that needs to be in place, along with product market fit and creating campaigns around that.
Yeah, just to touch on this, I think it's like one of those things where, yeah, like brand doesn't get click. Like what I mean is like the brand campaigns, they don't get clicks, right? Or you put billboards everywhere and they don't get clicks and stuff, like it's hard to attribute it. Yeah, it's all true. Or like you get a lot of, have a strong brand, but what does it mean? It actually, in my opinion, it comes up so much in all of those motions just working or not. Like you
Right.
see people clicking, like the conversions all of a sudden is higher, for a brand. Like it's a stronger brand. I mean, maybe the positioning is even weaker, but the brand is stronger, so the trust is there, so it happens. Or like the outbound stuff, works, or like some other stuff that it just didn't work, and there was
Yeah.
no brand. But all of a sudden, when there is brand, it starts working, which I find funny, because like then a lot of those programs get killed, the brand
Hmm.
programs, right, where they actually show up in those conversions. I mean, it's still hard to show the full impact of it, but I'm with you. But coming back to those foundations, right? So yeah, like product market fit and having so how do you see it? Like what's that the moment? Like do you want to see, if we're seeing customers coming in with similar problems, it's a similar sort of segment, similar champion, maybe engineering manager, maybe it's a bottom up motion with like purely devs just signing up for the free product and then converting, but you see that clear repeatable traction. Is that what you want to see, or and how do you sort of like measure that, or yeah, when it's there for you to start adding ads programs?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. Just getting product usage, right? Regardless of what that is, whether that's, hey, you're running a beta and like just testing, like, hey, this is what we're trying to solve for. Does this make sense? Getting some like just feedback from an audience is that you're actually going to use this, and there's actually momentum in order to do that, or just some other round. But just people just using the product in itself is incredibly crucial, because then that's what you can use to tell people like, hey, this is how you would do something. This is how you would solve problems, right? Or these are the things you can do with the tool. And so those stories are incredibly important when you're formulating, like if you're ready to go, because those are going to be the foundational pieces that you use in your campaigns as well.
So do you actually connect it to a campaign at the level of like activated signups? Is the conversion that you want to connect in ads? Do you look at it this way? I know I remember this story of I think it was Gonto sharing that story where they burned through something like, I don't know,
Hmm.
300K in ads or something. It got a lot of signups, but like virtually none of them activated.
Right.
Um, so then yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably like the third pillar I would say is like when you're talking about like, hey, are you ready for ads? It's more the technology side, is being able to capture conversions and understand how to track that individual and understand how to connect the dots between them clicking on an ad. And let's use this example of product usage. A lot of times people treat Google ads like e-commerce, like, hey, click this ad, buy something, cool, we're good. It doesn't work like that in B2B, right? Like a lot of companies focus so much on the sign up and not thinking about like what's the next level. So the way I actually think about this is like, cool, it's great to track the sign up, but are you tracking the next steps and part of the funnel with the customer journey that you actually care about? Let's talk about usage. People sign up. Are you tracking and applying any of the tracking mechanisms to people actually using the product? And so what I would actually do in that case is, and Google Ads is kind of getting deeper in the weeds of setting things up. You can create different goals and conversion events and add value to those events, right? So let's think about this in like maybe a three funnel analogy. Like you have your sign up, you have usage, and then you have paying, right? You want your sign up to be probably, you want to track that value probably at a lower scale than the other two, because the other two are way more valuable, and then add values to each one of those based off of some arbitrary number. So think of it as like, hey, maybe a sign up is $1 value, and then your usage is now $20 of value, and then your bottom of the funnel, like actually paying, is like $100 in value. Google's algorithm is based off of data, and then how you're feeding data to Google, but then also what it's getting as far as clicks. So if you can tell Google based off of those attributes, hey, I want to value somebody that uses the product and buys something or pays for it more than just a sign up, Google's going to change its algorithm based off of the values that you feed back
Yeah.
to it. So kind of wrapping that up is you have to be able to track the Google click to all those events and then feed that back into Google in order to be able to track through the customer journey in the
Yeah.
funnel. And that's where the power is in Google Ads, is being able to feed data back in, not just focusing on a sign up.
Yeah. So you mentioned sign up, activation, monetization. Do you do anything pre sign up? Like, do you do like those, like the signals of conversion, as in, people go into pricing,
Hmm.
people go into various product pages, go into docs, like exploring the product more. Do you Do you add them as well, or you're like, yeah, like it starts at sign up and everything should, lead to sign up? How do you think about that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
sometimes I do that as well, especially, and then we'll get into this later, is often people will create ads just like, hey, it's direct response. We want people to sign up, but there's so much value in running Google ads that don't tie to a conversion. Like, hey, we're just getting traffic to key pages. And so I'll do that probably on top of the sign up and say maybe a click to docs, the pricing page, and oh no, that's another one. A startup guide, whatever it is, right? Maybe that's valued at 50 cents. They haven't signed up yet, but I still want to value them and capture that audience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll get into the conversion, those conversion events in a bit. But yeah, so we talked about this distraction, being able to set up things at the tech level, right? It's like, so being
Hmm.
um, able to track those things, but in reality, you can set this up like yeah, like at least some of those should be there, but not necessarily the activation definition, right? Like that is
Hmm.
sort of like a thing I see sometimes where um yeah, like there's no real definition of activation that actually correlates with like midterm retention, like 90-day retention or anything like that, right? So then it's sort of trickier, because then you can
Yeah.
bet on, like, yeah, like, so let's bring signups or like qualified signups, but yeah, but it's not enough, especially in those POG things. But okay, we have the tech side, we have the traction, and and so what do you is there are there any like limits around the traction, or like things there that if it's like, if you're getting less than, I don't know, 10 conversions, 100 conversions, you'd much rather, a month, like, then you'd much rather not focus, not do much here, like focus on organic stuff and like actually building traction before you go at it, or how do you think about that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's a little bit of when you're starting off in Google Ads, you don't know what you don't know. So you
Yeah.
kind of have to throw, I'd say, like money at it blindly to see what happens and see if you can actually get conversions. But you need to have guardrails and say, like, hey, at what point do we turn this off if we don't have enough data? Because as much as I hate to give control to Google, that's
Yeah.
the world we live in with Google Ads, is that if you have to let them use their optimization like tools. And I'll be honest, their stuff around smart bidding is going to be way better than anything I can do as far as like manual bidding, right? And so doing things like that, the only way those are successful is you have data points. So if you're getting, I think what they say is like you need to have at least 15 conversions, 15 conversions a day to be able to like teach Google enough things about your audience to like be able to optimize based off of maximize conversions. So if you're not getting those points, you need to think it's like, hey, is it even worthwhile to run these campaigns anymore? Or you shift your mindset and say like, hey, maybe Google Ads right now isn't ready or is good for signups, but maybe we use it for more of like an awareness play where we're now just using it for content and trying to get people to um, show that we have content around the use cases and the problems we're trying to solve and build that brand awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's like, even like yeah, because like brand awareness is this dangerous term, that is like, it's
Yeah.
like, if the campaign just went to shit, you can just claim it was a great brand awareness. But I think there's like that part that we talked about before. Like, there are those events, there are those pages that, hey, if I could pay devs to read my docs on my core jobs to be done use case, right? There is some
Hmm.
amount that I would pay if I could, have every dev that fits my profile in San Fran read that docs page and go through that tutorial, even if they didn't sign up, even if they didn't, do anything else. There has to be value, in
Hmm.
that. There is a lot of value in that, right? So like, so in that sense, like, you could, yeah, but you could move that conversion sort of before, right? Like, as in, we had this that sort of like partial conversion of like that, that small signal that there is something,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
yeah, but um, okay, so but so are there, what is the last, sort of example, of a company where you said, okay, so this is not ready for Google Ads. Like you guys should just like go and work on, I don't know, whether that was their positioning, the tech stack, the like actually getting adoption, actually getting traction, actually getting something. Could you give an example of that where so it was clear that Google Ads was not the thing for them?
Yeah, so I haven't run anything where like Google Ads wasn't the right place because I tried to vet that in the beginning of the engagement before that even happens, right? And so I kind of know that if you don't have these pieces in place, then it's probably not a good idea to spend money on ads. And I'll give the client suggestions on like what they need to do. I'll use an example. I remember I went through a pitch a couple of weeks ago, and I asked them those specific questions. I'm like, hey, what problem are you trying to solve? What's your positioning? We're trying to very early stage startup. Do you have product market fit? And the answer to all those things are no. And if you were to just throw money at ads with all those answers being no, that's going to be such a failure. Because then you're going to be like, what's going to happen is, hey, you're going to try all these different things. Nothing's going to work. Somebody's going to eventually say, lack of better words, where's my money? What am I getting out for spending money on ads? And it's just in a lack of better words, it's a failure in that sense.
No.
And that's going to leave a bad taste in somebody's mouth. I'm like, kind of the common theme that you hear a lot in this world is, oh, Google Ads doesn't work. Like, oh, Google Ads doesn't work because you didn't set it up correctly. And so that's like an example where, at least from my end, I would rather you not engage with me and get these foundational things right before you start spending money.
No, and I think that makes sense. I mean, I think in the a lot of those things that ads do, they amplify the conversions that are already happening. Right? So it's like, if something is already doing something, like if you're already getting, folks, searching for things, signing up, through Google search because they search for particular jobs to be done, or comparison with other tools, or, XYZ software, or other high intent, words. And then likely there's room to amplify it. And the same goes for other channels, right? Like with marketing on other channels, or building those LinkedIn engines on different creatives and thought leader ads and whatnot. It's basically amplifying the organic in many ways, amplifying the trust that you're already building and stuff like that.
100%. Yeah. And I'll tap in, like if we took a step back from all of this and just understand search in general, people are coming to Google or even coming to AI. First, they're asking a question. I forget the metric in the report was, but it's like 80 to 90% of the queries that come from Google start as a question.
Yeah.
And so if your product doesn't answer a question, then is it going to even have value on Google at that point?
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. And I think it's like, I think it's like informational. That's what they call it, right? Like the informational queries, right? That would be the thing. But like I think it's like, like when you think about DevTools, and I remember I had that sort of like two camps of people that I talked to. Like there was one camp where it was like, we have a boring product, but it's like typically when somebody says it's a boring product, I'm like, okay, this is good. In some ways, this means that it's going to be like clear jobs to be done, or like things like there's like people, for some reason people want to use this, right? So there's some good things about it. And then there's like those super exciting products which are exciting, but at the same time there's no demand for it. Like if that's a super new way of solving a particular problem that nobody yet adopted, or maybe just a few design partners or whatever, but it's like a completely different way, so nobody's by design, like nobody's searching for it, there's no demand for it, so you gotta create that demand, so to speak, or wait for it to be created. And there are other channels, a lot of thought leadership stuff is just working, because like like people are not searching for it, but they see you and they buy you, this is like a good idea, but they weren't searching for it, there was no demand, right? So in that sense, but so okay, but say we start, right? So say we start, we went through that process, we didn't get thrown out as a DevTools startup, we do have some traction.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
we get a pleasure, of working with Matt on Google Ads.
Hmm.
How do we start? What do how do you like to start this process? How do you like to think about the steps that the startup should take?
Hmm.
Yeah, how do you think about it? If you could, give a high level here.
Yeah, I think I'm in two different buckets. Is there's the technology tracking side and there's the campaign structure side. So let's talk about the campaign structure, I think, first, right? What I like to do is like, hey, let's formulate 2 to 3 core use cases, core campaigns that we can create around your product, right? Like what problems are we trying to solve? And that's where we'll start as far as like doing keyword research off of those topics. Along with that, we'll talk about the whole like idea of quality score a little bit later, but understanding to like match your search query to the intent, to the ad, to your landing pages. Like, okay, do we have landing pages that actually answer these questions or give information on this? If not, then we should probably actually go to the drawing board and create these landing pages first. Because one of the worst things you can do is like, yeah, this high intent search, because that's what search is, landing onto the homepage. Like, I don't know how many times I've done that. I'm like, okay, this is the ad I wanted to click. I land on the landing page. I'm like, what am I looking at here? Like, what? I didn't find what I was going to find. And so that's one of the I
Yeah,
see actually really often is people will run Google ads. They have this idea and they just land people on the homepage, and you're like,
yeah,
okay, that doesn't make sense. So creating that content to match the campaigns and the queries that you're going after are going to be really important. On the back end, making sure that you're able to track um, that visitor all the way through. What I often see times in the developer tools space is that you have great tracking on the front end on the client side stuff with the marketing website, but that tracking doesn't go all the way through the app. Like it breaks when
hmm
somebody signs up for the app. So there's a piece in that becomes a little bit more challenging where you're like, kind of what you're talking about in the PLG model is how do you connect the tracking parameter, the Google Click ID, to that person and then to usage as well, right? And so I look at those pieces and see what can we do and what can't we do. If we can't, if we currently aren't tracking all the way through, is there anything that we can implement on the product app side that allows us to do those things? Because I want to be able to create those layers that we're talking about earlier about the different like usage levels.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I can build campaigns based off of not just the sign up, but how you're using it and then if you're paying.
yeah. I think of that part, just a comment. I think it's like, um, founders typically, they don't want to, and rightfully so, right? Like you don't want to be gamed, as in,
Mm-hmm.
somebody comes in and like games the signups and gets a lot of signups, but those are completely irrelevant. Maybe they are actually devs, but or people learning how to code, but they're definitely not a, I don't know, lead architect that you were hoping for,
Right.
from so then it becomes a tricky thing, because if it ends at sign up, then, and especially if there's like no qualifying question, nothing there, nothing that helps
Mm-hmm.
me anything, to do anything there is tricky. And so I think, like, selling that to the founders, if you will, is like, yeah, like this helps you actually see that there are results, and those should be, you actually want to go far in that, so that the founder is actually happy if you grow a particular conversion. Like it's like hard, like everything can be gamed to an extent, like every KPI is gamed, but because it
Yeah.
becomes the goal, like it was supposed to help to measure the goal, but it becomes the goal. But yeah, but I think it really helps, if you can like move it later, and actually focus on what's important, and then, yeah, connect that. Okay, cool. Sorry, that was a long comment.
No, that totally makes sense because I see this a lot, especially on the agency side, is marketers stop at the sign up because that's the conversion event. And then they say, hey, look at all the great things I'm doing, look at all the signups that I have. But they don't mean anything unless they create business. And that's where my demand gen hat comes on, is like if you want to do this well, you have to understand the full journey and like what the value is, because the CEO doesn't care about your signups. He cares about, am I making money? Are people actually using the product?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the challenge there is, if you're early, then you don't have five
Yeah.
years of correlations that you can, live off of and actually
Hmm.
optimize those things in a nice way where, it's not only activation, but this correlates to 90-day retention, and that 90-day retention correlates to to upgrades and monetization, and that correlates to to upsells and growth in revenue, etc. And you have like all that journey. So for a startup that
Yeah.
is I don't know, a year old, you're not going to have
Hmm.
that data, right? So how do you?
Right.
What are some like sort of pragmatic things that you like to do here to in some way work with those, yeah, like incomplete setups, right, where you don't have
Hmm.
you yeah, like you don't yet have those the clarity there. You cannot really connect it all the way to, I don't know, yeah, like
Hmm.
returning customers, so to speak.
Yeah. I would ask the question of what do you care about after sign up?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If we can get to a path where it's like, what's the easiest path to the next step? That's what we would work on. Obviously, we would love this full funnel, like tracking
Yeah.
and whatever, but that's sometimes not going to happen, and the resources sometimes aren't there. So what I like to ask is like, what's the next step after sign up you care about? And can we build any type of parameters around that so we can at least feed that back to show, hey, the signups are actually doing something. And even since like that also gives me insight into, let's use the example of like products as well, is like their onboarding is like, if you see like high signups, is that an issue of maybe their onboarding process? Something that maybe I don't control on the ad side, but it's on the product side that we probably need to fix, right? And so those are the pieces where if we know that critical next step that we want people to do after sign up, it helps us solve the what's that sign up worth to me problem, but then also helps kind of the product team or like the company understand like, hey, there's some reason people aren't taking the next step after sign up. Let's discover what that is as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 All right. Yeah. And I'm with you. Like I think it's like yeah, like activation typically is the driver, of adoption, and the
Hmm.
biggest lever. And yeah, so I'm with you. I'm with you there. Okay, so we have, so let's say we, whether that be activation, could be other things too, right? Like it's not everyone is POG, or
Uh-huh.
not necessarily that is the key thing. You may be an enterprise, more so like an enterprise software with
Hmm.
like book demos and things like that. And then as well, it's like it's not only click on that, but did that demo actually got sat, so to speak, right? Like did people actually get there,
Right.
right? So it's a similar concept where um, you want to get to an event that doesn't get challenged, because it actually matters to the founders, to the to the person who wants to run those programs, right? So I think it's a really good thing, and you don't go too far, because you also don't want to go too far and only because then you have those, yeah, like the most important metric is like what's your ARR basically, like how much
Right.
you're getting there. But you know you're not gonna get that clearly easily, and it's not gonna be super, you're not gonna get a lot of those conversions, or you're not gonna see that enough to actually feed the algorithm and optimize. So you may be sort of, yeah, like it may be a cleaner strategy, right, with like less, but there's it's less risk, but it just doesn't get you the results you want, because you want results. So you need to sort of like
Hmm.
work in that pragmatic level of figuring out, yeah, what's the uh
Yeah. And that's like steps to like the funnel, right? It's like if you can figure out how to solve that critical next step and you solve that problem, then you can move on to like, okay, what's the critical next step after that? And then after that. And so it's kind of like this waterfall effect of understanding like how do we create systems and structures in place to mitigate the full journey.
can you expand on that? I'm sort of wondering, um yeah, could you expand on that, and on sort of like how does that become actionable in your work as well?
Yeah, it's just like kind of what the conversation we're talking about is like activations happen, and then you're trying to get them to, if you say like, hey, critical next step after that is usage, and you're like, okay, now we've solved that problem. Okay, what's the critical next step? What you're trying to do is get to that eventually that revenue number or whatever, that big. end KPI you're trying to gain, instead of trying to boil the ocean and try to do all of it and have this perfect scenario, take those steps and like, hey, let's just figure out the next step to
Oh
move
yeah,
forward
yeah.
with. Kind
I'm,
of like
I'm I'm
that.
with you on that so much. On like just doing one thing. Like yeah, obviously the entire funnel has its problems, but if you
Yeah.
try and do everything, then one, it's hard to make any difference if you try and do
Hmm.
everything, and two is it's just easier to see impact of your activities if you just focus on one component, right? Like on one
Hmm.
step, whether that be awareness, whether that be like just the activation or whatnot, but just like doing more of one thing, if you will, like is typically
Yeah.
something that drives better results, at least from my experience, than trying to maybe do a few things. Like there's ways around it, and big companies obviously they have those pods, and you can do pods
Yeah.
focusing on different components, but it's sort of like the same. That's yeah, like you have more research, so we can do that. But basically, every pod just does one thing at one
Hmm.
particular moment. It fractals all the way down, if you will. So I think that's very
Yeah.
smart.
What's that quote? It's perfection is the enemy of progress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like trying to create a perfect like funnel, you're never going to move forward. Coming from GitLab, it's like where I learned this is like the MPC model, where minimal viable change. What's the one thing that you need to do in order to just ship, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like how I like to think about this is things are complicated, but let's figure out just what's that critical next step that we need to do so that we can ship and get things going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so on that front, so closing maybe the loop here on the side of the events and stuff like that. So we want to figure out what are those key actions that people can take. We want
Hmm.
to figure out what's the next action after sign up, because a lot of times this
Hmm.
will be POG motion in DevTools, and it will be actually signups, and then there will be some activations and usage coming after. But you really want to get that next action after sign up. Um, we talked about those additional events that could be there that could help guide that conversion. Anything else that you'd add to this sort of like part of the thing before we go to campaigns?
We might talk about this in campaigns, but then also understanding your budget.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Having an understanding of what budget you have to work with is going to dictate your like how you're going to set up your reach. Like if you have a budget of $5,000, you probably should not do a global targeting, right? Like that $5,000 is only going to go so far. And so that's the piece that you also want to play with is like, what's my budget? And from a strategy perspective, how can I make this $5,000 go as far as possible? And then maybe it's not catering to um, like North America. I'll use that example. Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody wants to cater to like the United States, but that's also a competitive, expensive market. So does that make sense, or do we go to places that are maybe have developers, but is a less expensive conversion, right? And so things that you have to think about there
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
you can't be everything to everyone. You can solve pretty much I don't say like everything, but you can solve a lot of things with a lot of money. Like if I had millions of dollars, I could probably force myself into like a really great campaign, but most companies don't. And so you have to understand that budget and say, okay, what is logically capable with this budget that you put in front of me? And
And flip. Yeah, sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah,
I'll say like how I'm gonna have the most impact off of that too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm thinking, sort of like flipping this because flipping the question there because sometimes, especially if I'm like an early stage founder, I haven't worked with ads with people working with ads, right? And so I don't know, right? Like I don't know what should be the budget, right? Like I almost want to flip the question. And by the way, I like to flip this question and think of like, so what
Hmm.
does good look like? And then
Hmm.
then if I understand what does good look like for maybe a particular set of problems I want to solve, let's figure out which parts of this I can afford, you know. But
Right.
like first I kind of want to understand what does good look like, and what would be, yeah. And a question for different programs I often get is, so what's the minimal
Yeah.
test that we could set up to actually see if there is any signs of life. maybe it's phrased
Yeah, totally.
differently. So if we can go
Yeah.
here, how do you see that? Like, what's the minimal test, or let's say, I
Mhm.
mean, oftentimes people would want, like, we want more signups. That's the question you'd get, when people come in. But let's say we go for those activated signups, right? And then, um, um, yeah, most DevTools, like, you'd want to get people from the US, but also there are people from, Canada, UK, France, Germany, all
Mhm.
and all over. But like, those, bigger markets, Scandinavia, and
Right.
so where ads could be more affordable. So in that sense, what would you say is like the minimal budget, or below which you think is like, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to work on this.
Mhm.
And then the second one is, what is sort of like the good budget to start with from your perspective, to start, let's say, start going at the US. If I want to do US and I want to do,
Mhm.
activated signups, typically, what do you see there?
Yeah, I generally say if you're starting from scratch and just trying to figure out discovery, is minimally, I'd say anywhere between 10 to $15,000 per month USD. Um, and you have to be able to be committing to these programs running for at least anywhere between 60 to 90 days, because it really takes that amount of time in order to get results and the algorithm to start picking up. A lot of what I often see happen is people running these things and then 3 weeks in, they're like, we're not getting any signups, and they shut everything off. You're like, well, you really didn't give it enough time to run. And then that just from experience, $10 to $15,000 a month really gives you enough reach to go after a core like number of countries. Like North America is always going to be a top of the list. Parts of like a lot of Europe is going to be those on those lists as well. And so it's okay to target specific like maybe continents or countries, but I wouldn't say like, hey, let's do a global campaign, because there's obvious countries within global that's not your audience, that you don't have a heavy population of your audience, right? So you want to try to cut that out as much as possible. To your conversation around like the US or anything, I would probably still stick to that $10 to $15,000 minimum per month and run it for at least 60 to 90 days.
Mm-hmm. So so then we're okay. So we're taking 10-15K, right? And we want to allocate it across those various campaigns that, maybe touch a core, you know category that we're getting into, right? Category keywords, with, high intent qualifiers. We're gonna get into that in campaigns in a second. um, um, and then, there's things around, solution aware, folks, and
Mm-hmm.
comparisons that are going to be important. Maybe one part, and I see that a lot. I mean, it also touches on the, on the campaigns, but I see that a lot is the when you go into those accounts and you look, the vast majority of conversions come from brand. and then
Yep.
and then there's like a lot of spend going everywhere across the, like everywhere, in, into different
Mm-hmm.
keywords that have zero chance of converting. um
Mm-hmm.
but you look at it blended, and then you see like, yeah, like, this program is actually producing something, but that branded like, it's actually branded
Mm-hmm.
keywords that you are, so branded as in, your company, Acme, or
Yep.
whatever. And then, it's basically somebody typing that in and then clicking on your ad,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm wondering, what's your take on like the brand? Like, I almost feel like, unless, like, if you're a big company, then you want to defend, and there's like some funny ways how people defend.
Yeah.
But if you're like a small startup, then I feel like it's, I don't know, like, it feels like you should not
Yeah.
run this. I don't know. How do you think about that?
This is such a hard question for me because I've seen both sides of it. And it's hard to say definitively what you should do and you don't. You touch on a really great topic in the sense that from a competition perspective, like I wouldn't necessarily run brand ads unless you start to see like competition where people are bidding on your brand term, right? Because you want to control that space for yourself. If you're still having, and this is the question mark that comes to my head, and this is like the nature of AI, but you have no control over that. Obviously, like if you're going to Google search and the AI results are taking up the
Mm-hmm.
vast majority of the page, different story.
Mm.
But you want to claim that top placement. The thing that I like about ads, and you have to um, play this cautiously. The thing I like about running brand campaigns is that I have control of where that person's landing as far as a landing page.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whereas with organic search, that person's landing on the homepage.
Yep.
So you do have a little bit of that control, like, hey, I actually want people to go to this page and not the landing page in order for my brand search because I know this page converts better.
Mm.
So there is that. If you're playing that almost that conversion rate optimization play,
Mm.
you can start doing that because you can control where those visitors go. But to your point, I wouldn't go down that path of bidding on your brand terms unless you start to see metrics in place of things like competition, or you need to control that traffic to go to get better conversions in that sense. In most cases, when people are even when you have people bidding on your brand term as a competitor, people are searching for your brand name for a reason. They're searching for your name. They're not going to be like, hey, I'm going to go to this other website because I saw an ad. They're actually looking for you.
Yeah.
So most cases, they're going to scroll and click on your organic link anyway.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that point you made is interesting. You know, the one with like you control the conversion better, and you know you can control the site links you show and like you know how it looks more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but I think it's like interesting that part of like getting people to a particular landing page, and versus to home. I wonder what would be the good example of when that was key. Something I'm thinking about now is and what I see a lot is like you know let's say you run. I remember that example, like we ran Twitter ads, and then you
Mm-hmm.
know we had no clicks on Twitter ads, so we turned off Twitter ads and we saw signups go down. So then we actually ran an A/B sort of like a geo test, right, where it would just like you know in certain geographics it would run in certain, and you'd see lift. And so we're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so that's interesting, and obviously like that uncovered a pattern of like people see your ads, they don't click them,
Mm-hmm.
but they Google, you know, so they Google your company and then they go to the first result that's there, right? And you know, and it's all good. So like I wonder if in that sense, like it's almost like if you know, especially early, that you're like heavy on ads in a particular channel. Let's say we're super heavy on Reddit ads, and for some, but then why wouldn't your homepage be enough? I wonder. I wonder. So what's your take here?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I found is maybe it's different with earlier stage because people are open to testing, but there's a specific positioning that founders, so like C-level CEOs or founders, want to have with the homepage of how they present themselves from the homepage. And then also there's people creating the website, right? So there's like visual plus messaging positioning that they want to have on the homepage.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean the homepage is great for
Oh
conversion.
yeah.
As like an ad, if I'm like thinking of this from a conversion rate optimization perspective, I'm like, hey, I want to do XYZ changes on your homepage so people convert better. That conflicts sometimes with how they want to present themselves with brands. So the reason why I like ads and be able to
Mm,
push that audience to a different page is that people care less about the landing page that I'm creating. That's a conversion rate optimized page versus the homepage. It's a
yeah.
big battle when you're trying to like shift the homepage to something
Yeah.
that is more, lack of better words, convertible.
Yeah, that's so true. That's a good idea because like I just had that case in multiple you know sort of flavors, working on positioning, and you know funny thing with positioning and messaging is that when you actually do it in a way where it says something, then people disagree. Like we
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't put like if it's like all fluff, then everyone's like yeah it
Right.
looks great, it's so amazing. But like when you make it clear, people disagree, and then you know and then things go a certain way. But yeah, like um that could mitigate that problem, you know, if you know like there's
Mm-hmm.
like there's different stakeholders and maybe sometimes you don't have full control over it, like you cannot really, like you tried but you cannot really change what's on the homepage, you know, more than you already have, then that's that's an interesting approach to it. Haven't thought about that, but I like it because if you cannot really put that positioning that explains the person, the you know people you're going after, the pains you're solving, etc., like the you know the things we talked about at the beginning with the fundamentals, then I mean, if you're sending people to a website that says, like, I don't know, build tomorrow, today or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Built by devs for devs.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then there's nothing there. It's like just, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm with you. That's an interesting one. That's an interesting one. Okay, cool. So closing the loop maybe on the, on the, we talked about the I mean, technical aspects of the setup, then the budget, then the budgeting, right? And we go into campaigns, right? We go into campaigns and we
Hmm.
want to start figuring out what to tackle, what sort of keywords we want to tackle, what sort of stages of intent we want to tackle.
Hmm.
Talk to me about that, about things that how you think about this when you start
Hmm.
with a new customer, new client.
Yeah, I like to think of this in like core topic broken out into subtopic, broken out to keywords for those subtopics, right? So it's just kind of like I forget the name of the chart, but essentially like yeah, that the chart that trickles down. And the reason for that is that structurally it just makes it so much easier to understand. Like, hey, if I have this campaign around, I don't know, like uh, I don't know, coding tools, right? Like this is where I would go to find all that information. What I often see happen is that all every possible keyword is lumped into like one campaign or ad group. You're like, what? How does this make sense? And you have conflicting intents to happen. So when I think about that, is like, okay, what are your core 2 to 3 campaigns themes that we want to run? What are the sub themes underneath that core theme? And then what are the keywords that associate to
So
those
so
like
so
sub
so, ta-
themes?
so
And
taking that coding assist, you said a coding, right? Or whatever comes to mind, like that, or maybe the campaign that you recently ran or something like that. But just like, can you make it more specific? Like, give an example of like, how do you sub theme it? What would fall into sub themes and stuff like that?
yeah, so a good example of that. Let's see how I can speak to this without getting myself in trouble as a real world example
Yeah, we
using the topic of like AI coding tools, right? Like what I would do is like, hey, my general topic campaign. So what you call in Google is campaign AI coding tools. My subtopics are probably be all the different coding tools that we want to compete against or we want to leverage. So maybe
Cursor,
it's Claude,
windsurf,
maybe it's
stuff like that.
yeah,
Mm-hmm,
exactly,
mm-hmm.
right. And then you create those as your ad groups, and in each of those like ad groups, we're going to create keywords for that specific. Because what you're trying to do, what that also allows you to do is match the topic to the intent of the searcher, because it's only that specific keyword, and then you're able to match the ad landing page to that subtopic as well, right? And so that, in essence, improves your quality score because hey, I'm telling Google this is what this person is searching for. It's 100% tied to my ad copy. It's 100% tied to my like landing page. So therefore, with a higher quality score, you have a higher likelihood to get shown for that intent. But then also your ads become cheaper because it matches.
Yeah.
And so that's how I
Mm-hmm.
like to think things for like both from a topically perspective to be able to track it in my brain, but then also from like a Google perspective, like how Google thinks about intent.
Mm-hmm. And so on that front, why not think about it in a way where it's like, say the differentiation. So yeah, say we obviously want to match intent, right? Intent of the searcher, and then get them to a page that matches that intent too. Um, but then we have there's like differentiation, say the differentiation, or like whatever USP you want to communicate to get people to click, is similar across all of those sub themes. Maybe that's not true, but let's say that is. I wonder, why not just go for dynamically changing like the dynamically changing copy there in the
Are you talking
H1.
about?
Yeah, like the dynamic.
Oh, are you talking about keyword insertion, or are you
Yeah,
talking
yeah, yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah. Versus
Okay.
so doing the keyword insertion versus doing the sub themes. If the if
Hmm.
the reason there is mostly too much intent versus there's a different message. Maybe that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, I like keyword insertion as long as it's done correctly,
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of ties like the messaging to the person. The issue there is the landing page, right? And so if
Mm-hmm.
the keyword
Mm-hmm.
insertion and topic is unrelated to the landing page, you run into a quality score issue there. But then it's also
Mm-hmm.
irrelevant. And so you may increase your like your user metrics where you're getting bounces where it's like, hey, somebody typed this in. You had, let's use the example of you had a broad match term that's in your campaign and it triggers something that's unrelated to your product or services. Now you're creating this negative UX experience where it's like, hey, I keyword insertion, you said this, but this doesn't exist, so then I
Yeah.
bounce. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a proponent of keyword insertion as long as it's done very well in a tight manner.
Mm-hmm. So the learning there would be, well, at the end of the day, people when they click, they need to go to a landing page. That landing page gets scored in Google Ads anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
you might want to think about that, and if it makes sense to to match it all the way. Okay, so coming back, we have the theme and sub themes for different campaigns. Do you also like to like divide it into those like high intent comparisons, brand, those sort of things, and then within that do the themes sub themes, or how do you think about that? Maybe I don't know if I'm explaining it, sort of clearly.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. I don't necessarily like creating campaigns based off of um, the intent and where they are in the customer journey,
Hmm.
because there's going to be awareness within that. I like doing that maybe at the ad group level because I can control like the keywords a little bit better. But as like the reason why I don't like doing that is because then you end up creating duplicate like campaigns. It becomes a pain to manage. So I'd rather have just one core theme and then have the subtopics within that, or the ad groups within that, maybe cater to different parts of like the customer
So
journey.
so taking that example, let's say we had AI coding, and
Hmm.
then typical what I mean in like high intent would be AI coding tools, AI coding software, or maybe yeah, AI coding
Hmm.
software, AI coding, yeah, tools. Let's say, right?
Hmm.
Where would they fall in your sort of like how you like to think about it?
Yeah, in that case, it would probably be if we wanted to, let's take a step back for a second. Within those like keywords, there's going to be awareness and high intent. I'm going to download or try something like keywords, so you need to separate those out. And I create different ad groups for that. It's like here's maybe my awareness AI coding
Mm-hmm.
category where it's just more of like informational, and here's like, hey, here's my ad group for converting, and those are two different landing pages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. So then the basically the biggest differentiator there is that that even no wait I don't think I get it. Sorry. So
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so yeah.
Well, yeah. So think of it in the sense of like the searcher, right? If I'm just trying to like get information on like the different AI coding tools that are out there,
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily want to land on a page where I'm like, hey, convert on this
Yeah,
product,
100%.
because
Mm-hmm.
that didn't answer my question. And so I would take that topic of keyword coding tools, figure out what my awareness stuff is. So like my who, what, when, where, I, how stuff. That's just more of like, hey, I'm trying to find information. Create a separate ad group for that that lands on more of like an awareness landing page. And then understand like, here are the people, here are the keywords that people are looking for that are ready to like about to try different tools, right? Or trying to like answer questions on specific tools.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would land that on a page that helps like cater to that group.
So taking this example, then what do you mean is, in I'm just trying to see if I get it. So we have the AI coding. Somebody types in AI coding, right? And then within that search of AI coding, we're gonna have um, we're gonna have both higher intent people and very low intent people. Is that what you mean? And then you try to um, somehow split that um,
Mm-hmm.
traffic with different ads. Some of those ads would be more sort of educational ones, and some of them would be actually more compare versus other stuff. But with more higher intent. Is that what I mean?
Yeah, I would. You can do it two ways in that example. Is one, you can just based off of the data, split them off into different ad groups, so you can control what the ad copy and the landing page is. Or you can the other piece is like getting it to the keyword level and say like, here's all my awareness keywords, and then setting each keyword to a destination URL that goes to an awareness like landing page, and all my like bottom of funnel intent, like high intent stuff going to like a conversion page, right? And that's another way to do it.
And then the way that people know which one's which, I mean, the searchers is in the copy of that ad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
Yep.
so that you actually want to get less clicks from people who are not at the bottom of the funnel on those ads that they may actually get shown because they typed something that is inconclusive. It's not clear if they're high intent or low intent. Is that it, or I may be completely off? I'm just sort of trying to.
No, yeah, it would be. I think I understand what you're saying is that what I want to do is kind of back to what we're saying is like match the intent to like, sorry, match the landing page to the intent of the individual, right? If they're not ready to try something, then we shouldn't be landing them on a page that is converting them. And so from systematically, as far as like how you break that up, is like I actually want to break those two audiences out so that I'm not landing somebody on a landing page that they're not expecting. And so whether that's splitting that up into a different ad group or setting up the destination URL, I want to be able to break those two groups up.
So then we would take that AI coding example. So we have that AI coding, and let's say that's I don't know. Let's say that's obviously it's a bucket of different keywords that fall under AI coding, whether you use phrase match. Unless you go exact, but let's say we're talking themes, right? So we can think theme is a phrase match or something, and then within that bucket of keywords that would fit that bucket of AI coding, there would obviously be things that are obviously high intent, right, and things that are obviously not high intent, and then that's what we'd try and split. I wonder there, considering what's happening now with search as well, with like and how people search, what people learn from where, looking at you ChatGPTs is like
Yeah.
is that low intent traffic even worth pursuing from your perspective, like the low inter of education, like what is that'll be sort of like what is AI coding, right? How do you think about that?
100%. I think it's a kind of back to the initial conversations we had in the beginning. Is a lot of times people think about direct response. Did this campaign generate a click for me and a conversion? The leveraging what we're talking about here is like, hey, if I'm able to establish interest and, lack of better words, build that brand awareness so people land on that landing page, you can build a remarketing pool around that traffic audience where now I can take that pool of people that are just traffic that maybe it's low intent, but then run remarketing against that pool and get them further down funnel, right? So there is 100% value of running those like lower intent searches where you're just getting traffic, as long as you have a secondary event. It's like, okay, how do I get this person to eventually like try the product or convert?
So where do you send them? Like the landing page, or it actually sends them to like a guide on what is AI coding, or how do you look at that?
Sorry, the initial search or the
No,
remarketing search?
initial one. Let's say it's an initial one, low intent.
Yeah, it'd be like a guide. I'd figure out like what that grouping's looking for, like what's the intent around that search, and then build that content. Or if we have existing content, try to drive that person to the content that makes the most sense. Guides are great because, like we said, people go to Google to answer a question, and a guide normally helps answer those questions. So if I'm able to help you solve this problem that you're running into, as far as like, I don't know, with like windsurf or whatever it is, like, hey, I'm running into this issue with windsurf, yada yada yada. Like, how do I solve this? If you're able to have a landing page and guide that is talking to that, that's really helpful, and that has the ability to increase like dwell time, and also like just like time on site of, hey, I'm going to spend time reading through this guide to figure out if I can solve my problem.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. It goes against my sort of common, I guess the default approach to this, where I'm thinking it's mostly, search. It's mostly going to be, like demand capture. So I wanted to look for the keywords that actually mean demand is there, right? Whether that be at the solution aware stage, comparisons, alternatives, or that be it a, like the category, I'm exploring the tools in the category, right? Or there are certain jobs to be done that I want to solve, right? Like it's, maybe like a jobs to be done, I have a clear jobs to be done based product. APIs are very,
Hmm.
common case here, where it's like, they do a specific thing. So, like if somebody's searching for a specific thing, you want to, catch that intent, because we obviously are helping with this. So it's like a clear intent. But what you're saying is like, there's value in going a bit wider, or maybe a lot wider,
Hmm.
if this is part of a bigger strategy. Because if it was just just those campaigns were like, I click, I go there, obviously nobody's gonna convert if their intent in that session was to just like look at that guide. I mean, yeah, probably there will be some conversions, but it's not. Yeah.
Right.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think of this in the sense of when you think about enterprise, right? Somebody working within enterprise, they have their tool set that they're using, and they're trying to solve a problem with. So they're not ready to like switch tools. Maybe they're in their free time, they're willing to like try something different. But in that sense, like this is what I have, and this is not changing for a really long time. And so if I'm able to like gravitate that person to like a guide or an article that helps them solve their problem, they may not convert now, but there's a good chance maybe down the line, like, hey, I saw this on this
Yeah.
website. Maybe I'll try it out in my free time, or maybe I'll give it a spin on this use case later on, right? And so that's where like the power of, lack of better words, like non-converting, non-gated
Mm-hmm.
campaigns really do help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, the tricky part there is getting the buy-in from people, funding those
Yep.
programs to run those things, because obviously like this is, especially in
Yep.
enterprise, we're looking at 12, 24 months sometimes in extreme cases of like till the next evaluation happens, or like the next reason to switch happens. And then yeah, so this is a long play. That makes sense for
Yeah.
sure. But coming back maybe to the structure, right? Like, because then I want to go to
Hmm.
like the creatives and examples, but I'm coming back to that structure. So you you really like to match, which makes sense. You want to match the um, ad to the intent of the searcher, and then match the landing page they're getting, right, to that. And
Hmm.
I mean, it's at user, or sorry, at dev marketer's discretion to say whether the
Hmm.
homepage, because maybe sometimes I believe actually sometimes, well, for a single product homepage, single product startups, homepage is actually a product page, especially if it's like
Hmm.
with good positioning and stuff like the good messaging. So it's actually a solid page to set, to send people sometimes, but leave it to your discretion, because sometimes it's a horrible page, obviously. For comparisons, for example, it's pretty bad.
Right.
Yeah, but we have that. We want to match it. um and you start with like thinking, okay, so let's look at those themes. So you had those themes and sub themes, right? You mentioned that AI coding and maybe the windsurfs and cursors there would would how do you think about those comparisons? Because that's a big chunk of it too, right? Like one tool versus another, or alternatives. Is it
Yeah.
like a separate theme, or is it like a different sort of layer of ads altogether?
This is going to come down to the marker. The way my brain thinks is like I need to separate it out into a different campaign, just to like, so my head goes like, hey, if I'm looking for the competitor campaign, I know to go to this competitor section in the Google Ads. So that's why I like doing. Um, Other people think of it differently. It's like, hey, if we're going to do this campaign around this, then I'd rather have the comparison into this campaign. So it really depends on the individual. Me personally, I like, my brain thinks in compartments,
Mm.
so it needs to be in its separate campaign.
Mm-hmm. And within that separate, so let's say we have the separate, separate. I'm with you on this, by the way. I think it's just like cleaner way to think about this. And but we
Hmm.
have the competitors theme, and then within that, how do you divide it? Do you have do you actually batch the versuses with alternatives, or you treat them as slightly different intent, so actually different pages and different landing pages, alternatives and A versus B? How do you think?
I think about those like actually as the same. So I'll bucket all that into the same aggregate versus alternatives, comparing those type of things until I get enough data to see are there are there specific things I'm seeing where people want something different, right? Maybe they do want like an actual comparison matrix, right? And so with those comparison keywords, kind of similar, we're talking about either change the destination URL on that keyword to a different landing page or create a different ad group to it. So it really depends on like what I like doing is like, hey, let's lump stuff together as much as possible that makes sense topically. And then as data tells us to split things off, then split things off.
Yeah, I think it's a very good tip, sort of pragmatically for people, because otherwise you get into this perfection basically is going to slow down everything, and you're not going to run those things as well. Like that's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a little bit of, you're also doing yourself a disservice if you're trying to break too many things out too much. In Google Ads 10 years ago, or even longer than that, people are writing like single keyword ad groups where you can do that. It's like I can run this ad group based off of a very long tail keyword, right? That's not the nature of Google now. And like by doing so, you're actually doing yourself a disservice where you're creating a conflict within Google Ads, and Google's like, I don't know what to show an ad for based off of these two things because this matches and this matches, so I'm just not going to show your ad at all. So by going that granular, you end up doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally in search, it went into this more thinking and themes, and those different things fall under themes, and it's no longer you have to keyword stuff. I mean, it's not that it
Yep.
was a great experience for anyone, but yeah, but it at some point it definitely worked, right? So okay, we have those so those are two examples of campaigns, right? We have the competitive campaigns. We have those sort of category, keywords and then sub themes within it. What are some other things where you like to test out or ideate, think about, and add as themes to test, like campaign themes?
Yeah, I mean, there's use cases. There's, I guess it's kind of use cases as well, but product features is one. Like, especially when features is a big comparison with the company. I like also maybe thinking this requires you a little bit to stay in your toes a little bit, but understanding like what's changing within that space and trying to be ahead with that content, right? I like to use the word like going back to AI coding, right? That's such a big topic now. Is like it's changing the way people are thinking about coding itself. So what can you stay? If you're able to stay on top of like what's changing, creating campaigns around that, and be able to speak to that is really helpful. We talked about branding, and then also product releases. Like I guess that plays to features as well. Is like do your product releases connect with any of your campaign themes as well?
That's interesting. I would never put that in my mind as a part of a classic Google search ad. So can you speak to that? That sounds super interesting.
Yeah. So like product releases. I'm not a product marketer, so or like a product person, so you're gonna have to take this with a grain of salt. As I'm thinking about product releases, the releases are done mainly because somebody wants something, right? Like either that your product's missing something, or it's like, hey, I need to use this, and so those things should be tied to like a certain theme or a topic that's within your ad group. And so if you're able to speak to anything that's like, hey, there's this major release based off of this core competency that for the longest time we've said, hey, customers are asking for this and we haven't been able to deliver, and now we're delivering it. We want to highlight that based off of like the topic that's related to. And so anything that speaks to that, where people are searching for that type of solution, I want to bake into my campaigns.
So that'll be basically very similar to like the feature focused or like use case focused ones, just maybe with the difference being,
yep.
Maybe it does make sense to work on the ad copy that touches on this being the new release. That's what you think. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think I think about that a little bit, and then I'm also thinking about from kind of going back to the brand thing, right? Is like if you're keeping a pulse on, lack of better words, what's making customers angry about your product, and you take that and you're like, hey, I'm listening to you, and we're going to create a product release based off of that. You can now mitigate like that conversation, like, hey, everybody's mad about X, Y, Z. We now do this, and so that helps like kind of develop maybe people that were against your product in the past and then win them back.
So okay, so we have those different themes. We had category, competitors, features, use cases, releases that sort of connect to that brand. And now sort of moving to campaigns. I wonder, maybe at this point there is something that is different, and that DevTool marketers or founders hiring agencies, so folks should think about, that are vastly different between DevTools and classic B2B, because obviously you're going to have more classic B2B folks, right, doing ads, and then they come to DevTools and they everyone wants this to be successful, but often it is not. So I wonder, what do you see here? What's the biggest disconnect? Maybe at the at that campaign level, or maybe it goes deeper into targeting and the and the copy where a lot of things fall flat. How do you see that?
Yeah, a lot of when I've done audits, a lot of it has to do with like the ad copy, because a lot of people write ad copy, not to like a developer. They're saying like best in class, yada yada, like very empty promises. Click here now, we're gonna save the world. That type of like ad copy. Whereas, to be honest, the ad copy that I've seen generate the best quality scores and like have the best response is like if you just speak their language, right? Like, hey, this is our product, this is the problem that we solve, here's how to do it, or this is what you're going to land on. It's like, so click on this guide, or like try our product now, right? No fluff, no no empty promises. Like that's the stuff that works. And truthfully, if you think about the quality score perspective, that's the stuff that's going to improve your quality score, because it connects the dots between that, the intent, the ad copy.
So can you give an example of that being, like the bad copy stuffed with words that don't mean anything, versus that sort of more bland, understated, but actually developer focused, copy from,
I'll use everybody. The common thing that people talk about, like always put in their ad copy, I don't know why, is the word best. Like, we're the best. Like, what's the validator of best? Like, right? Like, who's telling you that you're the best? If you look at all these different companies, they're all saying that they're the best at something. So that's the stuff that's a little bit of the empty promises. The other one is like kind of getting a little bit more into the developer talk, like built by devs for devs. Right? Well, duh. Like, everything's built by devs. So stuff like that, just like empty things, like what does this even mean? Like, why is that even in like the ad copy? Whereas if you just answer a question, like I'll use another example of another client I work with in the authentication space. We just talked about, it's like, hey, this is what the authentication software does. This is the use case that they're actually doing, different technologies and whatever. And we actually spoke to, like, this is what you can do with our product. And this is how developers use our product. And that stuff works so much better than some of the fluff.
So before going deeper into copy, because we're going to touch on this for sure there, anything at the level, like when it comes to those differences between classic B2B and DevTools, that anything that you see that is vastly different, where people should put more focus on particular things, maybe first versus others, or particular problems they may run into outside of the ad copy?
I'm trying to think of that. Like ad copy, like the landing pages are another big thing. What I tend to see a little bit more on the traditional B2B is there's different conversations around this. the whole gated content conversation. What I see a lot from like the general B2B environment is like you have to have some type of gated content in order to like, because you have to prove that conversion. And then devs don't. I would argue that a lot of devs don't like that. Like if I'm going to try to solve a problem, I don't want to put in my email address, download this like ebook, and that ebook may not even solve my problem. Like I don't know how many ebooks I've seen out there where you're like, how is this an ebook? Like this could have been written as like a one pager,
frankly,
right?
it shouldn't have been written anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So those are things where I see quite differently. And like it goes back to like how are you helping that audience answer their question, right? And if it's tied behind something, not to say that all gated content is bad, but does it even make sense for for that individual that you're serving, right? Because if it's more top funnel and I'm writing an ebook about like what is DevTools, like I don't want to download an ebook to figure out what DevTools is. I can just type that into ChatGPT or something.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I do see use cases for this, like, but I'm completely on the train of I'd much rather have people read this and like, zero click content, like even, a lot of the ads we're running, LinkedIn, for example, as well, or stuff like that. They're like zero click ads. Like I don't even care if you click or not. Like there's a message that I'm delivering and like things that like the attention that I bought is enough, right? If like again, coming back to that docs page, right? Like if I could get my target devs to read that docs page or like to learn a particular message about my differentiation, if I can pay for that, I'm happy. Like I'm already happy that you learn about this particular differentiation. So if I was to put that behind a gate so that only a small percentage of people see that message, this sounds very weird, but
Yeah.
I understand why it happens.
Yeah. I always, right. Totally. I understand. Like you're trying, it's a little old school because I think there's technology that helps us answer the question, but it really is that conversion event and understanding. Like sales can't sell to somebody that just clicks on your website. You don't know who they are. I understand that. But there's a piece where like developers just hate that. I think just generally people hate that. Like if I go to LinkedIn and just type in the ad library, like ebook, how many hundreds of thousands of ads have an ebook? Like big run.
No. I'm with you. Yeah. Okay, cool. So maybe closing, we close that and now go into targeting and copy. So maybe before copy, I have one question. I really wanted to see how you think about that. That is around targeting, right? Like targeting the keywords we're going after, right? Because I may be at DevTool that I focus on a maybe more differentiated, more niche part of a particular category, right? Like there's a big category, say observability is a known big category, right? But if I go into like a pure observability, then I'm fighting with budgets from Datadogs and stuff. Like so, it's not it's fun, but not so much fun, right? But
Yeah.
but then on the flip side, I want to go to like a very differentiated, my particular use case is like, whatever that may be, but some niche within that, and then that doesn't get enough, there doesn't seem to be enough clicks if I want, or enough, volume if I want to go after that keyword. And I see that sort of like, happen a lot. And then, one solution that can work and that I see people do is so maybe we go a bit broader, but then we do a lot of negative keywords. We try to like cut out a lot of things there, but we go a bit broader and then we cut out. And I wonder, on that side of like targeting, especially when you are in that niche that is already where already people are putting their budgets to work, and how do you think about that? When you're a smaller one.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I totally resonate with that because I remember when we originally were running ads like GitLab, like how do you compete with DevOps tools? Right? It's like everybody is competing for that term. There is a level of broadness that especially if you're starting out, that you want to have in there because you don't know what you don't know, and like trying to get into certain keywords. So you may not be able to get a lot of traction off of that head term was the
Yeah,
example you
observable
gave.
software observability, let's say. Yeah.
Yeah. You may not be able to get traffic off of that head term of observability, but within that, if you have like a broad enough like search, kind of what you're saying is like have your guardrails in place, but like learn from like where else like your traffic's coming from and you're gaining traction, and then narrow it down, either building like negative keywords list or change your head term is like, let's actually go in this direction, be more specific. The other thing that you can play is understand where your audience, lack of better words, lives. And I like think about this in the sense with kind of what we're talking about with countries, right? There's a lot of people that want to target North America because that's where businesses are headquarters. But what people don't think about is a lot of these, especially enterprise companies, their
Yeah,
developers or their teams are in
that's
different
true.
countries.
So true.
And
Hmm.
so maybe observability is incredibly competitive in the United States. But if I know their developers in Brazil, for example, well, if I just did that in Brazil, you have a lesser cost per click, less competition, and you're still getting in front of your audience. So things to think about creatively is like, hey, cool, maybe like I want to like get into this country, but we don't have the budget in order to do so yet, or we just can't even compete with like Datadog or these big players. Let's see if we can find that competition in a different country where there's audience that actually um, not necessarily makes the decisions, but can have influence on the
Hmm.
decision.
Hmm. Or sometimes it's like, like tools. Yeah, certain tools get adopted organization wide from day zero, but many get adopted at single dev at a team level, and then many teams, and then you actually start, deploying sales to move to that organization level, right? So it's, it's a classic POG. That's how it works, right? So it's, yeah, like, so in that sense, it's not a bad thing if you have a few teams using this or that, even for their, setups. You're building that case for the sales and opening doors for the sales to do things, if you really want to sell, yeah, organization wide. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a good tip. Go geography. Learn from that wider net that you're casting. Learn where you're actually getting traffic. What does it mean for you? Maybe it does. Yeah, like it makes sense because it's, yeah, like that does the differentiated part that maybe doesn't, you don't see it when you set up observability, but then you actually see that, yeah, like if there's like observability for I don't know what, then you're actually getting it. If you're like Python observability, I don't know, like you actually see some stuff happening there, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other, tips around this, sort of fighting those hyper competitive spaces where you are differentiated, like when you look at the positioning, etc., and you understand when you win it, when it doesn't make sense for folks to like switch from Datadog to you, in that example, right? Obviously there's like competitor, keywords, but I'm wondering about those like the more generic campaigns, or general keywords like observability then.
Yeah. I would probably do some more keyword research in the areas like maybe competitive keyword research. Like let's say that you look at Datadog and there's going to be things that they're going to be
Yeah.
really great at a big, high level. There's going to be things that maybe topically they're not super great at or just don't have
Mm.
visibility in, but you know that they play in the same competitive space. I would maybe key into that as like, well, it's like, hey, I know I'm not going to run into this issue with Datadog on this topic because they don't have a lot of content there. So that's my advantage, and I want to try to run
Mhm.
campaigns around that. And then you build that little bit of like brand awareness to Datadog, where incrementally as you're doing that, you can start competing for like more your
Mhm.
competitive
Mhm.
terms.
Like that. Mhm. Yeah. And yeah, like I do think that's an advantage too. Like if there's a big competitor, and they've already spent billions on educating the market on the category, and you are differentiated in some particular way versus that competitor, so lean into that, like you can lean into that. That's a
Mm-hmm.
good thing too, right? Like I don't have to explain, I don't know, I don't have to explain Google search so I can be DuckDuckGo, and just say like, a
Right.
privacy focused thing. It's,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that
Mm-hmm.
that's come to mind as you're talking about this is also understand their pain points of going to like just Reddit or Stack Overflow, and like there's going to be consistent things that people are going to be complaining about. If your product is positioned to be the answer to that, you can essentially have this great, almost, I hate to use the word viral because it's like a bad word for me. You almost can be able to be like have this viral moment. It's like, hey, now I'm competing against these things that this company's really bad at, and now we're really good at it. So that's another place I would look into is what are the key things people are complaining about with these big players and tap
100%.
into
And
that.
I think like one thing there that I'd add is when those folks do switch, or they do switch to you, make sure to always ask people clearly, why are they switching, what are the biggest problems that they had, what do they really like about you, what was the reason they actually ended up switching to you, etc. And you get the quotes, you get the understanding, and then that feeds into your competitive page that actually speaks through their point of view of why people switch. So it's not even we are better than them, but it's more of a, like those folks switched for this use case because of that. You're not even saying that it's like you're better. Like this is the use case it was clear that it
Hmm.
made sense for that use case. And one is like it converts so much better, but
Hmm.
it's helpful, right? Like it's helpful as in, this is the reason, like this is the data point. Like I'm not claiming the objective we are better for this use case. Even what I'm claiming is like those are examples of real devs switching for those real reasons that they had. And I think, yeah, like the competitive page is built that way. And generally just like, understanding of like, yeah, like why people switch. Like there should be a good reason, right, for you to exist in the
Hmm.
data market. Like there is a reason why you figured, hey, let's go play that game. Because you're probably
Yeah.
frustrated as
Yeah.
hell with Datadog or others, or like playing there and not solving a
Right.
particular niche use case, or like something that you thought should be done differently. There's a different POV, different opinionated way of solving it, and that's where you're going at. So yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's go to copy. Copy of those ads, and I really wanna hear from you, like some of the tip structures. How do you like to think about organizing the copy there that matches to those themes and sub themes that
Hmm.
you mentioned before? Some key um, guiding principles for writing copy for ad copy, Google search ad copy for devs.
Yeah. Well, I'll first say that your lack of better words, every character is valuable within Google Ads because you're just so limited to like what you have. So there's for me, there's no room for fluff, and so that's why I get rid of all the fluff messaging. What I like to think about is like who am I speaking to and what problem I'm trying to solve. And if I'm able to say that, it's like, hey, I know it's developers. This tool does this, and this is how we do it. Keep it really simple. It's not really rocket science. Just tell people what you do. It's not that hard. That's how I like to approach Google Ads: is understanding who's the person using the product, what problem I'm trying to solve, and this is how our product
So
does it.
can you give an example of how that plays out in the actual ad copy?
All right. So this is a client I work with. It's Clerk. They're in the authentication space. And so here's just like really examples of like how we approached like the ad copy, right? It's, for example, this top one, like we wanted to speak to like next.js authentication. So we had just very simple copy, like this is what it is. Here's a quick
Mm.
start guide, and this is what it does. Components of like this top one, this components of auth helpers purpose built for Next.js app router. Very clear, very simple, nothing fluffy about it. This is just what it does, and this is how we kind of approach our ad copy with Clerk is because that's how what developers want. Like I just want to know what I'm getting myself into, and I'm very clear
So
about it.
just going over these here, it would be first is like match the intent, because I presume somebody typed in Next.js authentication, like that would be the keyword
Mm-hmm.
for Next.js auth or whatnot, and then the call to action, right? It's not it's not try free in this particular example. it's Next.js Elf Quick Start, right? As a CTA,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
what that sort of structure would be. In those examples here, I think you focus on actually what it does, and you go into differentiation a little bit, not really in that. I'm talking about like the headline of the ad, right? Like it's more of
Hmm.
a what and CTA versus the like explicitly talking about differentiation. At least in those examples here, I don't see it. Maybe you have some examples where differentiation comes to play.
Yeah. Um, maybe. Oh, I mean, I would also truthfully say that when we created our ads, which is like the responsive search ads, is that we purposely didn't pin a lot of things to um, the
Mm-hmm.
the headlines, so that we can alternate understand like what actually Google's serving and what people
Mm-hmm.
resonate
Mm-hmm.
with too. So I will do reference that is that sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't show up.
No, it's so cool to see npm install in the Google ad. That's very very devy. I haven't
Yeah.
seen that. I really like it. I haven't the first time I see it. Like actually somebody doing an npm install in the
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like if I'm a developer, if I see ads, what are my eyes going to gravitate towards?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. 100%, 100%. I love that. That one I absolutely love. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. So looking at those examples, right? We have the um one is like really focus on matching the intent of the searcher, and then when it comes to the the sort of gray copy, like the description, right? Any thoughts on how do you like to think about writing that? What do you like to to put in there?
Yeah, I think about kind of what we talked about, but then also like the how
Mm-hmm.
you do it, right? Or the different areas, like we talk about, kind of like um, this second row here, where we talk about the sign-in experience, like choose how users sign in. Like we reference, like you can do it with single sign-on MFA, whatever, whatnot. So we say like what you actually can do with it, because that's the problem somebody's trying to solve. Like, can I do this with the solutions that are out there? So I try to think about that as well. Um, I can't scroll through this, but then I also try to tailor some of like the extensions to that to apply to what that use case is. And so instead of just going to like docs is like, here's our doc site, like here's the docs page in which you would do this
Yeah,
task.
yeah. I think also like it's a good comment that those blue links, those blue tags. What do they call them exactly? I don't remember now, but like those things,
Oh, they're called
side links.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're called
yeah.
site
So
links.
they are really valuable. I think those
Mm-hmm.
things, they add a lot of. Also, like some people use them to communicate things too. Like you can communicate that you have integration with certain things or certain features or stuff like that, right? So it's not like they are CTAs,
Mm-hmm.
but they can also be a communication
Right.
mechanism. So that's yeah,
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's a communication mechanism in the sense of like, let's also think about the sense of my tech stack, right? Can I even integrate with my tech stack? And if we know what the key tech stack is, then we can add that to the site links as well.
super cool. Do you want to share an some particular ad from this one, or maybe some other uh, example?
So yeah, this is post doc. This actually ties into like what we're talking about. It's like, how do you make a boring topic really fun? I feel like they do a
Yeah,
great job of doing that. Like they're
yeah,
just a
yeah.
fun brand.
But by the way, they do have, I think, on the
But
homepage at the bottom, they have that CTA that looks like like an ad from the '90s or something. I don't know, like, but they have everything there with
I think
like,
I remember that.
I don't know, 5 sec. You have 5 more minutes to like buy it at this price, and like seven other people bought it, and like I don't know, like some funny stuff.
Yeah. But I like how simple their ad copy is, right? They say what they do. It's like the first one, feature flags and more, test features. I understand that. It's like one platform to analyze, test and observe. Like
Yeah,
that's what they do. They throw the lovely word in there, which I mean I can agree and disagree on that. I don't necessarily love it, but it's
yeah.
totally on brand for them that they would do something like that. So it totally makes sense. But yeah, this is something where they kind of play into like the same idea is that, hey, let's just tell people what the thing is and then what it does and
Hmm.
like what our product does.
Yeah. Although they do, like I see lower down, they go for like the number one, you know.
I didn't, yeah, this ad I didn't love. The number one iOS analytics film
Yeah.
compared to who?
Yeah. Exactly. Unless they like, because sometimes they, yeah, like they're doing things in such a snarky way that maybe if they connected that to something super snarky in the description, that would work. But it's like a, I don't know if it makes any sense. Like it, to like go this brand heavy in here.
Yeah. One of the things I love is in their ad copy is also they tie like the pain points of their audience to their ad copy, right? Like this one where it says, you'll hate post hog if you enjoy sales calls. They have this message all the time because their audience kind of focuses on the technical user, and no technical user wants to jump on a sales call. So like as soon as you see that, you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
click on that. Right? Like I don't
Yeah.
want to talk to a
No, no,
salesperson.
I love that. I love that on the homepage they had it as well at some point. I mean, maybe still do, but yeah, it's like it's the whole spiel. And frankly, like yeah, when I see an ad and I'm thinking about checking out this product, that does make me feel a bit more comfortable. Anything that is like doesn't feel enterprise, doesn't feel like I'm gonna have to jump through two calls
Yeah.
to get a price, sort of like an estimate, or like see the product. It's like it's
Oh
good,
yeah.
it's good.
Yeah. That's like the whole landing page and also just website experiences. I I still don't understand why we make it so hard for people to learn about what our product does on our
Mhm.
website. Like what does your product integrate with? Book a meeting. How much does it cost? Book a
And
meeting.
then
I'm like, I don't want to book a meeting. Just tell
yeah,
me
and
how much it
then
costs.
the worst thing is like you actually book that meeting and you go, and you want to learn those things and you explicitly, spell them out in the form, and then somebody comes in and says like, "What's your budget? What's your timeline?" Like there's no answer to
Yep,
anything. Yeah, but I know how it works. It's just
exactly.
it's just very frustrating. I think to devs it's just like it's frustrating enough where if I cannot see it, if I cannot play with anything, like I'm just gonna play with another product that
Right.
gives me that option. And so
100%. Yeah, the attention span for a developer is
yeah.
very short.
All right, but these are pretty cool. Yeah, I like what they're doing. I like that. I recently
Yeah.
saw but I didn't I checked I one of the episodes I'm gonna run is sort of like the teardown of the LinkedIn ads of Aikido security. I really like what they're
Hmm.
doing there. I wonder how their ads are looking here. Maybe we can pull them up, sort of like do a one more. So they go for feature. Yeah.
Try it. Yeah, their feature, they play the free piece a bit.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I see
Yeah.
some stuff that are like I do like that. If I'm searching for, I don't know, DAS, yeah, DAS scanner, so like and you catch me there, like yeah, like it matches the intent. But then it's like it's
Hmm.
although yeah, there is, yeah, I wonder if it's like too thin, like it doesn't um
Yeah. They play. The first thing I look for is exclamation marks because that tells me a lot. Like something like this is like join Aikido SaaS for free. They play that free messaging quite a bit. Which, I mean, it does and it doesn't. I would rather, instead of saying it's for free, I would rather say this is what it works with, or this is how it works, right? That gives me more incentive to me to click and try it versus just saying it's free. Because let's be honest, there's a ton
yeah,
of free
plus
software out there,
plus
so I
if
guess it
I
doesn't
yeah,
necessarily
like
matter. It's free.
there is always like the hobby plan, or a very limited plan or a single developer plan. But if I'm actually buying this, I'm almost never buying for a single dev, and I'm almost never going to end up on a free plan, right? So it doesn't, like, it's good, I
Right.
almost, as a dev, I almost expect there to be a free plan for me to test out, right? But it's not a differentiator
Right.
in any way, right?
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
No. And then developers are also like, what's the word for it? They're very cautious. So free doesn't necessarily mean free, right? They know there's something behind that free marker. And so that's another reason why sometimes I don't like using it, because there's always this preconceived notion of like
Yeah,
what free
because I
actually
think, like,
means.
if you're a more senior dev and you've seen it a few times, that you know that it's like, even if I claim that it's free forever. I think there was like a Hacker News thread some time ago, or it was when free forever means free for the next 4 months or something like that, and they basically they got the rug pulled. I think I don't remember what software it was, but, like, somebody basically had to cut the free plan for business reasons, and that happened. Like, it's
Right.
nothing against nothing fundamentally wrong with it. It's just like, when you have like a free forever and people talk about this free forever, and it's just like, it's not really forever. Like, it's still my VCs really push for me to,
Yeah.
like, figure out how to monetize that tier.
Yeah. I'm not going to name names, but I remember there's a software that I was using quite a bit, and they use that terminology. It's like free forever. And then I was recommending it to clients, and then the clients come back to me. They're like, it's actually free for 2 weeks only. I'm like, oh, shoot. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe it was free forever during COVID, when we didn't know what forever meant. So you know
Right.
yeah,
Right.
all right, that's cool. So
Too
yeah,
funny.
just to sort of close on the subject of Google Ads for DevTool, startups. I wonder if there are any notes that you'd like to leave the listeners with, any big principles that, big mistakes that you would want people to avoid, anything that could help people think and do Google Ads better if they're marketing to devs.
Yeah. I think there's this connotation that Google Ads is this magic pill, right? Like, this magic bean that's going to all of a sudden bring you traffic, bring qualified leads. And it's not the case. The way I think about marketing tools and programs and platforms is like, it's a tool in order to do something for your business, right? So you have to understand what that thing is, and you have to set it up correctly. I'm not gonna hit a nail with a screwdriver, right? So you have to understand like what it's good at and what it's not. And so I would caution people to think about a sense of like, am I ready to spend money against something like Google Ads? And am I set up properly to be successful? And a lot of times people just run ads and just hope for the best and nothing happens. So I would say, like, kind of what we talked about in the beginning, foundationally, make sure that you have um, your use case set up. Like, what's our messaging? What are we trying to solve for? And then do you have your tracking in place? Because that's what's going to tell you, like, hey, where are my dollars going? What's the return on ad spend? So foundationally, have those things set up first before you spend any dollar on Google Ads whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's like, a lot of the times it all boils down to foundations, where you try to get people in, but your first experience is horrible. Like, I get to your site and it's like, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to start. I try and there is like an error here or there. I go to the docs, nothing works. And or it's just like, it feels like it's not for
Yeah.
me. That experience is just not there, or you just don't know what you actually try, for those devs to do. You know, and then, yeah, so that
Yeah.
makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, like, probably the last piece in that, it's like, think beyond, like we talked about earlier, like, think beyond the conversion. Like, the Google Ads can do so much more than just drive that sign up, right? You can set it up in a way to answering the question, like, how do I get people down funnel to actually become a customer, or running ads where it's like, hey, let's capture this big goal group of people that are just in the awareness stage and then figure out how to pull them through. It doesn't have to be what's traditionally been like the direct response, like let's get somebody to convert.
100%. I think that's super valuable. Cool. Yeah. So if people want to implement this stuff and work with you, where should they reach out? What's the best place, best action to do? How to go through that form so that you actually agree to taking them in?
Yeah, I'm probably like the least social media person in the world as far as a marketer, which is really funny. So the best way to find me, like my website is demandhive.io. You can contact me there. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn, so look up my LinkedIn, either Demand Hive or myself, Matt Nguyen. I think it's the LinkedIn URL is Matt MattNguyen is my LinkedIn as well. So you can find me on those channels.
Awesome. We'll add the links in the description. And thanks a lot for the episode, Matt. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cheers.
Great conversation.
Hey.
Bye.
That's a wrap for this episode of Going Deeper into Dev Marketing by developer Mark Appare. If you like the show and would like to support, follow the show and drop us a review. It means a ton and helps other DevTool founders and marketers find us. For more dev marketing resources, check out marketingto.dev, where you'll find tens of guides and hundreds of examples. For more visual version of this pod, go to our YouTube channel at dev_Mark Appare. See you next time.